Hey, this is Tracy Lewis with Stuff and Things. I have a final retiring, returning, plus new product project before the retiring products are retired. And I noticed on my previous one for this week that the tint on the video is awfully green. And the reason why it's green is that we are in a very canopied part of the campground we're staying at that's all green, and in the late afternoon the sun hits at just an angle that it's very green. So I have a light on low to see if that helps with the problem of the green, and I apologize for that. That is the joy of moving around a lot. We get different lighting situations to deal with, but I definitely like producing videos during the daytime the best. So this final project here combines 3 sets. It's a little lace, and it is one of the sets that was sitting here on my sideboard waiting for attention. And I've only used this lace full background die one other time that I can recall. I have used the stamps a few times in the time that it has been around. And I was able to go visit Linda, a demonstrator under me who is close to where this campground is, and we spent the day coloring. And this particular stamp set, it's a Stampin' die matched with matching dies that is carrying over, so it's a returning, and it is no longer a bundle after the new catalog launches. It is called Forever Blossoms, and it's made with the distinctive pixelization for the shading. So we colored, and I colored using these 4 markers. I'm going to do a study next of the pinks, as I said in the previous video, and I guess I didn't say it in the previous video. But I am going to do a study of the pinks. There's different tones with pinks, and we have now 8 pinks to choose from. I wanted to use the new polished pink tones, so you'll see a lot of brights because the dark is quite vibrant. So when I was with Linda, I had it colored with just the pure colors, and I used Old Olive Light and Dark, Mossy Meadow Light. I used Balmy Blue Light and Dark, that around the die that would normally be white. Then I took a marker, or a sponge with Sahara Sand, the lightest tan that I could find, and that was the lightest one in the die inks, and I brushed the edges of everything, including the die cut, and I wanted to have a slightly aged look, not a lot, just a slight tint of it. And the flowers were awfully bright, so I want to show you a cool thing I discovered. This is just a piece of paper. Now I did all this work on basic white, because I know basic white can handle an extra load of ink over the Whisper White. So when you see all this color, this is actually a lot of color. Pretty much the full amount of color that I could load into a cardstock that I purchased back in the Copic days just for the Copic markers exclusively. So I am very pleased. I am pushing the basic white as far as I can take it. So this particular project was one of those that I pushed it quite far. So you'll see that I used the Flirty Flamingo pinks, and they were too grayish for what I wanted. So then I used the polished pink, and I liked this vibrant color tone. And then you'll see a couple of gray, or not gray, they're actually tannish tones. And what I discovered is I pulled what would be my old standby for slightly aging the paper to just not be so vibrant, and that is a Copic color called Brick White E40. And actually E40, E41, and E42. So I'm like, boy, I want to find a Stampin' Up! Blends color, the closest I can get to it, and see if it can do the job. So the lightest tan, Ivory was 2 skin tone. Same with this set is non-skin tone. It's a very grayish tan rather than an orangey peachy tan like a skin color. So light crumb cake is this color here, and on the bullet nib, which is what I ended up using, when I use the bullet, it's a little bit lighter colored. This is just a tip. The bullet nib doesn't throw down as much ink. So this left one here, that is the brush nib, this is the bullet nib. So that's a little tip. And I used the bullet nib of the crumb cake around the edges. There are a couple of little white spots that I left pure white, but I did tone down these flowers to be a little bit aged looking, so that they didn't pop so much off of the white. And then behind, in this area here, you'll see that I did some sponging. It's very soft, very subtle. I sponged this whole area to show just beyond the die cuts, as well as sponge the edges. I even sponged the bow, which is a white. It's a combo trim that did carry over. Thinking of You was done in Balmy Blue, and it is from Quiet Meadow, which I had sitting here because I've been doing projects with it. I didn't want to go with these speckles from Quiet Meadow because I just wanted a softer look of being aged. You know, maybe like the edges have been setting up. Maybe they've impacted and touched other things. So I was not going for a true aged look, just a soft aged look, if that makes any sense. And I'm curious of your opinion if you think that this worked or not. It is not a treatment that I normally do. I was wanting to explore the ability for the blends markers to add the slightly aged coloring to it without overdoing it. And I think it did a really good job. I like the light crumb cake. I am definitely going to keep that note in my head that if I ever want to do some aging, the light crumb cake will do the job. And then the basic white did really well. In fact, when I feel it, see, by the time I added all of these colors, many layers, I even used the blender pen to push some of this vibrant, the dark, I pushed some of it away. So there's actually, if you look closely, it does have some push marks of the bullet nib where I pushed some of that bright color back. That's what I really like about alcohol markers. It's one of the few mediums that you can pretty easily, without overloading the paper like you could do if you tried to tone down a watercolor wash, for instance. And you could do that on watercolor paper, but I like that I can manipulate this new paper, new cardstock that is, way more than you could with Whisper White. So I also colored the pearls with the light polished pink. It then prompted me to think about doing a study on the pinks and start redoing my swatches. I do swatches of the ability to blend the variety of colors, and then I keep track of them so that if I'm going to make a project and I'm curious about doing something a little off the beaten path, I go review what colors that I've done. So I have to do a color exercise next, as well as doing some shading sheets, and I will talk more about that in that video. And one other tip that I want to leave with you is these thin washi tape strips that I have cut and added around each marker. I don't know if I've talked about it recently, but when Linda and I were together, she actually asked me what those were for. And I said, because when I go and travel and I color with people, and we both have the same markers, we don't ever have to worry whose markers are whose, because I have put this unique gold strip. I bought these very thin washies in like a big lot of maybe 24 rolls, very, very thin, not expensive at all. And I use those to label my own markers so that when I go either to retreats or I go visit somebody and color with them, there's never a question of whose markers are whose. I am more concerned, actually, about my markers, which are very, very used, accidentally getting in the hands of somebody who has brand new fresh markers that they're just learning how to use them. I would not like them to be stuck with my very aged, very well-loved markers and then hear about the fact that their marker dried up when it really was my marker that I've used for 3 years. So that's the story on the strips. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions on this project, leave them here on the video or over on my blog. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and thanks for watching.